Lacey, can we make it to where I can see them too?
No, because it's a webinar.
Oh, all right. Am I live yet?
You're live.
Oh, perfect. Good.
Yes.
Good.
You're on.
This is how the private webinars go. Hey, am I live yet? Yeah, right.
It's a little more cash.
You get all the bloopers, right? They're live. All right, good. We're live. Fantastic. Man, thank you guys so much for popping in here. This is a special live webinar for just people from this last week. We had 1,200 or 1,300 people that had attended either live or after the fact, the start-stop list. And I just kept running out of time. And so I wanted to offer like the top 10 lead sources that I think right now, that I'm using in my business right now as well. And this is really my, like these are right now plays. I don't know, like some of the ideas I'm going to give you today and some of the things that we'll say, I don't know if they're going to work in 6 months. I got no idea. The theory of them always work, right? And one of the things that I'm really not battling with, but really digging deep on right now is things like, so here's an easy one, right? Which by the way, it's number 8, 9, 10. It's number 8 in the list of 10 in order of importance is for sale by owner. For sale by owner is always good for me. Like I've always worked for sale by owners. It's number 8 on the top 10 list for me, which is falling pretty close to the bottom, which doesn't mean it doesn't work. It just means it's not the most important in the top 10 in order of importance. But I'll tell you, the way that we work for sale by owner today, like during COVID, real different than the way we worked for sale by owner 8 months ago, real different than 8 years ago. And so I'm really like, I mean, for the first time, like really for the first time, like again, just with for sale by owner, the last big change with FSBO for me was when it was truly internet based. Like when you could text for sale by owners instead of calling them, when you could email them like through the blue hyperlink in Craigslist and put them on a drip campaign through that. That was automatic for as long as that blue hyperlink would work, which by the way, still works. That was a massive change. Before that, for sale by owner was you just call or stop by. And there's little gimmicks to use, but you just call or stop by over and over and over and over and over again until they list with you or they sell it themselves or whatever. So I guess that's what I mean. Like some of the things, the theory remains the same regardless of timing. However, the application of it doesn't remain the same. So anyway, again, so today is very, very low key, very laid back. It's not a scripted presentation that I've spent hours getting ready for. These are just my thoughts around the top 10 lead sources. So I'm going to run through them. My goal is to go about 25 minutes. I don't want to take up all of your day. If I say 25, that usually means 30, but I'll do my best. You can always hop off. We're going to send you the recording of this. So if you're jammed for time today, I get it. We're going to send you the recording. Thank you for signing up for Hippo Pulse. The idea behind it is that, you know, on a screen, you can track all the major metrics of the health of your business. And that was why I called it Pulse. It's like the pulse beat, you know, like your heartbeat of your business. Contacts to appointments and appointments set to appointments held and appointments held to contracts signed to commissions and all the numbers that matter the most. It honors me that you bought it. It'll make my heart sing, as corny as that sounds, if you'll use it. It's one thing to buy it and pay the $5 a month. It doesn't, I mean, $5 a month doesn't mean anything, but it would really make my day if you were using it in your business. And I would push you to use it for 60 days. You know, Gary talks about, you know, 66 days to create a habit. Go use it for 60 or 70 days. And, you know, at the end of those 60 or 70 days, you're going to know something you didn't know right now. But it's like any other tool. You know, if you buy a tool and you never use it, then the tool is worthless. If you buy a tool and you use it all the time, you could build a city with it. And those are two different things. All right, so I'm going to quit rambling. Top 10 in order of importance. This is my opinion. We could debate it, but these are just my opinion. Database and Sphere always is going to be number 1. So I don't spend much time on that, but we know it's number 1. For anybody who's been around the real estate business for a long period of time, it's going to be database and Sphere. The problem is some of my friends don't have a giant database. That doesn't mean that it's no longer the number 1 source. It just means it's not their number 1 source. And I've really had to learn over these last 20 years to be able to discern between like what I think and what I want. And it's almost like two hands. On one hand, you've got the business that you have today. And on the other hand, you have the business that you want tomorrow. And so if I'm an 18-month realtor, or even an 18-year realtor who's never done jack with my database, which I've got some friends who are 10, 15 years in, they're like, man, I did really well with new construction, or I did really well with this, or really well with that. I just never did a database. I mean, here I am 15 years deep and my database is 500 people, so something ridiculous small for 15 years in the business, right? So regardless of how you got there, it doesn't matter whether you're new or you never did it. On one hand, you're like, all right, so if my database is 200 people, unless they're all buying and selling homes right now with me, it probably won't be my number one lead source. And if it is, my business is too small. Chew on that for a second, right? But it doesn't mean that I don't want it to be tomorrow, which is where we talk about adding 2 people a day. And I've talked about this for a really long time. If you'll add 2 people a day, your business won't look a whole lot different today. But you run that play out for a couple hundred days and you've got 400 new people, then your database looks amazingly different. And if you run that for 1,000 days, 3 years, 4 years, you run that thing out for 1,000 days and you've got a couple thousand people in there, that's a business that I would buy from you. That's a business that you could sell to someone. Those are wildly different. So database and sphere remains number one. However, during COVID, I think database and sphere looks a little bit different. Here's what I mean by that. I don't think that you could call too much right now. Like I would have told you prior to COVID, BC, before COVID, I would have said, like a good rhythm here is, once a month, every 3 weeks, like really calling your database more than every 3 or 4 weeks, at some point gets a little bit obtrusive, right? Like it's difficult to pull that off. If you got a database of 50 people and you called all 50 this week, you can't just call all 50 again next week and be like, hey, it's been a week since we talked. Do you know anybody who wants to buy? I mean, no one's going to do that long term. So here's what I believe during COVID, and we're going to know in a year if I was right or wrong. I think that a healthy rhythm right now is about every 2 weeks. And that would have been too much prior to COVID. Like every 3 to 5 weeks would have been the sweet spot. And every 2 months, I mean, kind of like in Bold, we teach like the DTD2, do the database 2, like you're contacting your database at least 4 times a year. Like that's a long-term good rhythm. But during COVID, if you have a giant database, you probably can't touch them every 2 weeks. It's too many people to call through. But my friends who have a database of less than 1,000, this is good news for you, because you could call your database right now every 15 days, every 13, every 18, like something close to about every 2 weeks. And I don't think you're not going to be overdoing it. The message changes though a little bit. So I want you to write this down. The message, if you're going to be contacting your database every 2 weeks, which is faster than normal, the message has to change. It can't just be, who do you know that wants to buy, sell, or invest? Like that's cheesy after 1 or 2 contacts, right? And so what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to shift that message a little bit to something around market of the moment. Here's what I've learned. As long as you keep it to the market of the moment, you can almost do anything, which means all you have to do, let's do it this way. Let's say that you're 6 weeks in, you've contacted Bob in your database twice already in the last 6 weeks. And today marks the 3rd time. And it's going to be the 3rd call in 6 weeks. And you've called this guy on a rhythm of every 2 weeks. The first time you just checked in, you used the script, hey, how are you doing? But you dug deep on what that meant. And by the way, if you're going to keep this recording, hey, how you're doing, also means 3 more questions. How's your family doing right now? Like, how's everyone doing? You're going beep, boop, 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 boop. You're looking through your CRM and you go, oh yeah, Bob's got kids. How are your kids doing with going back to school? Like in our city in Portland, where I live, like kids aren't going back to school. It's going to be Zoom until at least November, which you and I both know means probably January. And as soon as you slide to January means maybe next year, like who knows? So let's say that call number 1, you did that. And on the second, how are you doing during call 1? How are the kids doing? On the 3rd, you might even ask, again, this is still on the first call. The 3rd, we call it digging deep. The 3rd digging deep of how are you doing is, do you know anybody who's been directly affected by COVID right now? Like, do you know anybody who's sick right now? Can I help with anything? Like, hey, I was looking through my notes and it looks like your mother lives here in town. Does she need anything? Is she doing okay? Does she need to know like what stores are doing, special hours? So you guys get the point, right? So that would be call one. How are you doing? And then number two would be, what are your needs? And you're going to dig deep on that. However, 2 weeks later, you really can't have the same conversation. You could say, how are you doing? It's been a couple weeks. Any changes? You could do that, right? But on call number two and call number three, it's going to put the pressure on you to be talking about something different. Right now, it's super easy. Interest rates are super low, so that's an easy slam dunk. But you can't call every 2 weeks and say, hey, guess what? Interest rates are still really low, right? However, think about market of the moment. This is, what day are we filming this? This is August 6th, which means you're right on the edge of the federal government removing that extra stimulus around unemployment. And so if I'm calling my data bank today and it's my second or third touch or fourth touch, like if I've been calling them every 2 weeks and we're now like 8 weeks in, I'm going to talk about that and say, hey, I was thinking about you. By the way, do you need anything real estate related? Always going to ask the question, do you need anything real estate related? When you do, let me know. But I wanted to give you a quick ring. It looks like the extra stimulus, the other, like the doubling up, if you will, of unemployment is going to run out. It's set to run out. Senate's talking about extending it. Who knows? Like, I don't know, and you don't know. But right now it's set to run out, set to stop. It's already stopped. Do you know anybody who's been affected by that? Do you know anybody who's looking for work? I just wanted to give you a ring today. I talked to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people here in San Diego, and I thought I'd give you a ring. And if you know anybody who's looking for work, would you send them my way? I don't know that I can get them matched up with someone, but I talked to so many people. Do you get my point to that? And then 2 weeks from now, you're calling that same guy again, but it can't be the same conversation. So it's always got to be something around the market of the moment. Now, the good news is this. There's enough things that are changing right now. You could be calling every 2 weeks. All right, so I'll move off of number one, database and Sphere. My main point is calling them 4 times a year right now probably isn't enough. And you're probably having to make 2 and 3 times the number of contacts to get the same number of business. I know that I am, which means you're going to be calling the same people every 2 or 3 weeks if you're smart. If your database is over 1,000, that's going to be a real challenge for you. You're either going to need staff to help make those calls, or your rhythm needs to be like once a month or once every 6 weeks. But 80% of all realtors have a database smaller than 500 people. So 80% of the people that I talk to could call their database literally every 2 or 3 weeks, and you've got time. All right, number 2 is pay-per-click. And I'll put these on the screen at the end with a graphic that you can take a picture of or keep or whatever. But pay-per-click. This is the first time that I'm telling people, go spend money on leads early, like in a list of 10 things, right? And the reason for that is this: you need something that's working when you're not. You need something that's driving a lead in the middle of the night when you're snoozing. You need something that's driving a lead when you're doing a home inspection on Tuesday afternoon. You need to walk out to your car and be like, ding, 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 I got another lead. Like, you need something right now. You need something that's amplifying your efforts. And you look at like Facebook's up 250% in usage. Google searches will tell you they're up 200 or 300% in Google searches. Like, there's just more people online more often, which means it's an easier time. That dilutes how much you have to spend. And so, like I had shared last week on the webinar, that we had cut $70,000 a month from our budget. There's only a handful of things, which, by the way, budget cuts like that are always short term. Think about your personal finances, right? Like, you've already cut some stuff, or maybe you need to cut some stuff. We're walking back into the fall. The fall is not usually the greatest time for real estate agents. Like October, November, there's usually kind of a slump. We get a little spike sometime about November, and it runs till sometime about December. But the second half of December isn't usually a giant 2 weeks for closings. There's always that back to school slump in most markets. I don't know what this year's going to look like. I mean, do we have a back to school slump? I don't know. Do we have, some people have like a back to school emphasis, and it's like, hey, I got to be in this school district. I'm not sure if that's going to happen this year. Like, it's just weird, right? We don't know. And we're not going to know until next year or the year after, when we could look back with rear view vision and rear view mirror and go, that's what happened, right? So anyway, all right. So pay-per-click, you need something. The challenge with pay-per-click is always the barrier of entry of money. You can run your own. And here's one of the things I would push you to do. So if you're one of my friends at KW, you could do your own pay-per-click advertising through Command. there's a learning curve. Like you're going to spend a little time and a little money on this. Maybe it's 20 minutes or 30 minutes a day. And in 10 or 15 days, you're probably going to have some ads running, and you could put limits on it for $2 or $3 or $5 per day. That way you're not spending too much. My friends who could spend more, spend more. Remember that the greatest thing about pay-per-click is that you're only spending when they're clicking on it. And so there's only a couple of terms, pay-per-click and CPL, cost per lead. From there, it moves away from lead generation and it moves to lead conversion. And you're tracking something totally different, which is like speed to lead and how many can you actually, conversion rates, right? But on the front end, for the capture, for the net, it's just going to be cost per lead, pay-per-click. Like that's it. There's a couple of options for you. A couple of years ago, it would cost you $1,000 or more per month to even play in the game of pay-per-click. Just to play in the game of it would be $1,000 a month, because you'd have to buy like a system, and then they would tell you a minimum of X amount per month to play. And so 1,000 would have been the smallest up until recently. There is, you can do your own through Facebook. It's challenging, but you can totally do it. And the greatest thing about Facebook with that is that you can drill down to people in your city, to people who live in your zip code, to people who are saying certain things, to certain demographics, like are they 25 to 40? Are they recently moved? Like those types of things. And what I would do with this is the type of stuff I keep talking about, working early hours, and I keep talking about working late hours. Like this is the time in your business where you're working an hour or two in the morning before the workday starts, and maybe an hour or two at night. This is when you play with those triggers and you're like, all right, I'm going to play with this and figure it out. You have that, like you could do your own on Facebook. We're spending a ton on Facebook right now. Those are the ads that show up, and we're doing well with it. We're also spending a bunch on Google. We don't spend a bunch on anything else. Like Yahoo, we don't. I mean, Bing, we don't. Like we've played with those. But the two that are repeatable success are Facebook and Google. Some of you need to go do some on Instagram though. It doesn't cost much, and Instagram is inexpensive, and that's now a derivative of Facebook. Instagram was Facebook's competitor until Facebook bought it. Take a lesson from big business, buy your competition. And so you could run some ads on Instagram, and again, they're not very expensive. Just dip your toe in the water. You don't have to be an expert at it. Just start playing with it. You have another option. There's, and full disclosure, I own this. And so if you buy this, I'm going to make money from it. Full disclosure. I created a company called Swift Hippo, which is the parent company to the app that you purchased to be in here today. Swift Hippo, though, I looked down and I was pissed. Like I was like, man, it costs $1,000 or $2,000 a month just to play the game of internet lead gen at the lowest possible level. I mean, I'm spending tens of thousands a month, like tens and tens and tens of thousands. I didn't start there though. I started with like 5,000 a month. But even then, how often do you look down and go, I got $5,000 to spend on something? You got to make 20 grand to pay taxes and expenses, then pay yourself, and then you have some money left. I mean, you got to make really good money to put in $5,000 a month at something, even 1,000 or two a month. Anyway, I'm rambling. So I created Swift Hippo, and it took me a few years to get it moving. Swift Hippo's been up and running for about 18 months, maybe 22 months, something about that time frame. But it gets you in the door as low as $299. We do a seller-focused website, which I looked down, and I mean, Gary always told me, find a problem or a hole in the market and then provide a solution for it. Internet lead gen has predominantly been buyer focused. And through about 2017, that was true in my business. Like we'd have a seller accidentally sometimes, but it was almost all 95, 98% buyer focused. About 2017, 2018, that began to tip the scale. And today, internet lead gen for us, for sellers, is like 30 or 40%. Like of our lead gen, 30, 35, 40% of our lead gen is seller focused. That's a big deal. If I had to guess, in 3 more years or 4 more years, you're going to be 50-50. Like it's more common for sellers to find an agent online today. It's been real common for buyers to find an agent for like a decade or 12 years. I mean, I was killing it on Craigslist back in 2009 and 2010 when we were running 9,000 ads a day with 3,000 different properties. Like it was wicked. We had we used to ship computer terminals all over the world to third world countries so that people couldn't ping our IP addresses and shut us down for overposting on Craigslist. It was ridiculous, but we were driving thousands of leads or registrations a month on Craigslist. And you can be an idiot in this business as long as you have, I mean, I'm proof of this. As long as you have thousands of registrations a month, you're going to have something fall through. Anyway, you got to do something on pay-per-click. If you want to check out Swift Hippo, go to swifthippo.com. My friend Crystal is our salesperson there. She'll walk you through it and give you a demo. It starts at $299. There's a few different options you can choose, but I really wanted to create something that wasn't cost inhibitive. Like you didn't have to spend $1,000 or $2,000. Plus Swift Hippo is month to month. I mean, I created it and I'm an agent, and I always hate the idea of, oh, if I sign up for this, you know, I'm hammed into 12 months. I'm stuck. I didn't do that. So it's month to month. Love for you to take a look at it if you want to, but do something on pay-per-click. If you don't buy it from me, do your own, do something. You've got to. Number 3 is social media, which kind of goes with pay-per-click. But on social media, what I want you doing right now is I want you posting content. And what I mean by that is this. So here's a few ideas, and you got to write them down. Idea number 1, every time you're out showing homes, I think you ought to be doing stories. So do stories on Instagram or stories on Facebook. People like this. So grab your phone and be like, hey, I'm showing homes to the Johnson family today. They're looking for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, blah, 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 in XYZ city, but we got to be within 10 miles of XYZ hospital because that's where they work. Make it interesting. People like this stuff. You and I don't, but the consumers do. You and I are like, oh my gosh, this is boring to us, but it's not boring to the consumer. And you go, all right, I'm going to meet with it. Think about like reality TV. I'm going to meet with the Johnson family. I'm going to see them. We got 4 homes to look at today. I'll keep you posted. And then throughout the day, you just keep adding to your story. You're like, all right, this is the home. Check it out. I think they like this one. Hey, this is the one. What do you guys think? They got it narrowed down to this one and this one. Which one would you choose? Are you getting some ideas from this? Make it fun. Make it real while you're doing it. By the way, your buyers will think it's cool too. You'll have 1 buyer out of 10 that doesn't like it, but 9 out of 10 will like it. Make it interesting, make it fun. The other thing on social would be this. You got to quit posting crap. What I mean by crap is dumb things like, hey, interest rates are low, contact me. That's shit. Quit doing that. That's not good enough. That's not good enough. What you could do though is this. You could tell the story. If you're writing notes, I want you to write the term story. Hey, some friends of mine just refinanced their home and they didn't move, but because rates are so low, they're saving $250 a month on their mortgage. And here's what they're doing. If you need to save on your mortgage, call me. I got the best 2 lenders in town. Something like that. That's way better than rates are 2.65%. Call me. That's garbage. You got to quit doing that. The other thing on social is that you should be doing webinars. You should be filming or recording a 10-minute webinar. Keep them short, but don't make them evergreen. Evergreen means it lasts forever. Don't do that. This is all things that have an automatic time limit, meaning, I'll make one up. How to sell your home for the most amount of money during COVID. And you talk for 10 minutes and then you post that online. You could do it through Facebook Live. You can do it through Zoom and record it and then push it out through Facebook Live. That's how I like to do it. Then you communicate with the people that watch it. That's the cool thing about Facebook, right? Like you can go and look who's seen it, who's watched it, who's commented on it. You can say, drop me a message here if we need to connect or whatever, but do something. Do something. So social media for me is number 3. Number 4 is NOD, notice of default. If you haven't been a realtor for 15 years, you never worked notice of default. Like the last time we really worked NODs was like 08, 09. Like that's when we really worked NODs, even 07. That's where somebody has missed their payment X amount of months and they show up on a list that says they've been served a notice of default, meaning their loan's in default. It's a weird time right now because you've got people that did the forbearance on their loan for 3 months. But if they still can't pay it, this is when they start getting triggered for notice of defaults. Like you're living in the month where most lenders are like, cool, time to bring this puppy current. Or they come back, like the bigs have already come back and said, hey, like Wells Fargo already came back and said, hey, and Citi came back and said, hey, we'll take your 3 months, we'll add it to the end of your loan, but you got to start paying again right now. Or contact us for some other plan. You're going to start seeing NODs take off. You've got options on NODs. Number 1, do something. You don't have to be great to start. You got to start to be great. Number two, you have to get the data. And so the most important piece is I got to start, then I got to get the data. For you to go and scrub the list and find your own notice of defaults, it's too cumbersome. It's too much. You can buy them from LandVoice. That's where I buy mine. They're too hard to get on your own. You can buy them from LandVoice. If you go to landvoice.com, I don't make anything from this, but if you go to landvoice.com/Cody or whatever, Lacey can drop it in here for you. They'll give you a discount on the NODs. You can also work with your title company. So if you have a title company, some title companies will help realtors and help pull notice of defaults for you, but be careful with it. You got to get the data somewhere. For you to go find it on your own, it's too cumbersome and it's too cheap to find it. Now, once you have the data, and this is number 1, 2, 3, this is number 4 out of a top 10. You got to be working in ODs right now. I really think you do. From there, here's all I want you to do. Right now, all you do, depending on what data you can get, like for instance, I would use LandVoice to grab their data, and then I would use Ivy, which is another company that I use, Ivy Data. I would upload all the data into Ivy, and Ivy will give me up to 8 or 10 email addresses and names and numbers that are attached to that home. Now, then of course you got to scrub it against the DNC and all that stuff. Like I get that, right? You got to, especially right now. Don't play games there. But once you get the data, now you can drip on them. And if you can get an email address, you just send them an email. Hey, how's it going? Thought I'd check in with you. You just open the dialogue. There's 2 choices on NODs, and we'll come back and do another webinar probably in 3 weeks that is just about NODs. You're going to see people doing more and more and more of this. Option number 1 is, any promos for Swift Hippo? Yes. If you contact Swift Hippo, if you use my name and the promo code, or when you talk to Crystal, just tell her Cody, and they'll waive all the setup fees. And so there'll be 0 setup fees. You're up and running. You don't pay anything to set up. By the way, I hate setup fees. But there's 2 choices on NODs. You have blatant, and then you have stealth. Blatant would be, hey, I saw your name on the notice of default list. Do you need any help right now? Like that's blatant right out of the gate. Hey, sounds like you're not making your mortgage payment. Can I help you? Stealth would be, hey, I was looking through and not looking through, excuse me. I was trying to read the question on the screen at the same time. Hey, I just thought I'd call and check in with you, or I thought I'd drop you a note. I'm constantly helping people buy, sell, and invest. And if I could ever help you, please let me know. Like that would be the stealth way of doing it. Either way is fine. You can do it either way. I've got friends that did amazing with both. I've done both. Either one works, but you got to kind of choose what works for you. Some of you are super blatant people and you're just right to the point. You're going to choose option 1. Some of you are not that person, which means when you choose option 1, it doesn't come out right. It doesn't make it wrong. It just makes it wrong for you. It's kind of like scripting, right? Like some people are amazing at calling FSBOs and saying, hey, I can sell this home for more than you are and I can save you money. You should work with me. Like just right out of the gate, like right to the point. And some people do amazing with it and it's a great script for them. Others, that script doesn't jive with their personality. So it doesn't make the script bad. It just means you got to choose the one that works for you. Other people do amazing with FSBOs by just calling and checking in and, hey, I thought I'd give you a ring and, you know, gosh, gee whiz, do you know anybody who wants to buy in this market? Maybe you'd be a buyer for one of my listings, you know, and you're kind of backdooring your way into it, right? Anyway, so back to the NODs. You got to choose one of the 2. Here's what I would want you to do right now. Don't worry about what you're going to say when you talk with them. Just worry about getting a list of who to talk to. Don't put the cart in front of the horse. Once you have the list, you can do anything. You can mail them a letter. You could send them an email. You can give them a ring and just say, hey, I was checking in with a group of people that might want to buy, sell, or invest, and your name popped up. Are you interested right now? It could be that generic, but please do something. 28 million households last month, July, 28 million didn't make a mortgage or didn't make a rent payment. That's a big deal, man. You run that out 3 or 4 months, that's a big deal. If COVID drives us deeper back into quarantine, real big deal. If there's not a second stimulus package, real big deal. This is a massive thing. Like in my business, I'm tooling it up going, okay, we're going back to the NODs. Like for the first time in 12 or 13 years, we could be in a foreclosure market. By the way, a foreclosure market is huge opportunity for you and me. However, a foreclosure market will drive pricing hard. All right. Number 5 is circle prospecting. Circle prospecting is where you have an active listing or an active, like just sold or just listed or whatever, and you pull the data around it and you call the neighbors and you use a script like, hey, I was, you know, there's a great new listing in our subdivision or in our neighborhood. No better than you to figure out who might want to live here. Who do you know? Like that kind of a thing, right? Circle prospecting usually has for every 80 to 90 contacts, one piece of business. That's a really low level of return, but that doesn't make it a bad level of return. It's just a low level of return. If I'm calling my database, you know, 1 out of every 8 or 10 contacts, I'm going to earn a referral or a piece of business. But if my database is only 200 or 300, I got to do something. I got to do something different. Circle prospecting is one piece of business for every 80 or 90 contacts on average. But circle prospecting is the easiest way to add 2 people a day to your business. Do you see where I'm going with this? So it might not be direct right now business, though. If you made 40 contacts a day, every 2 or 3 days, you could find a piece of business. It's just a lot of contacts. If you made 20 contacts a day, about every 4 or 5 days, so about once a week, also not terrible. By the way, what other industry could you make phone calls like this and have 1 piece of business per week, 4 pieces of business per month? Let's call that 3 closings. But for most of you, that would be 15 or 20 grand a month in commission or more. That's a big deal. Like, I don't know another industry that I could do that kind of work and make that kind of money. It's a little monotonous, but it pays really well. If you're paying me that kind of money, call me monotony. I'll do anything, right? So if you're going to do circle prospecting, you can buy the data. Pulling it yourself is stupid. You're not going to do it. You're going to do it for a day or 2, and then after that, you're screwed. You're not going to keep doing it. It's too much work. I really like LandVoice for the data. I know I've said that before. They're the cheapest with the best good data. I don't know if they have the best data on the market. I never know, but they're the most affordable, best good data. So that's who I buy from. You can take an address, draw a circle or a box around it, and it will pull all the data for those homes and already scrub it through the DNC list for you. Then again, I really like Ivy data as well. Ivy, you could take that list. Let's say you get it from LandVoice, and it's unlimited, by the way, if you buy the right plan, and you pull like 80 of the neighbors, right? You take those 80 and you scrub those through Ivy, and you pay like 20 or 25 cents a ping, but it gives you more data on the owner. So I've had to learn that you kind of band-aid some of this together and kind of duct tape it together. I don't have any one-stop shops. Like, I don't have any, one CRM does everything. Yeah, get out of here. Like, that's a nice idea that I've never seen really play at a high level. And I always think about specialized equipment. I love to fly fish, and there's fly rod makers who also make reels. But guess what? I don't know a single fly rod maker who makes an amazing fly rod and an amazing reel. I don't know any, none of them. They make an okay reel. They make an amazing rod and an okay reel. And so then you have reel companies that make amazing fly reels, but then they started making fly rods, and they make an amazing fly reel, but kind of a crappy fly rod. I don't even know why I'm talking about this other than to give you the example that I just don't, I don't mind having multiple sources if I get good data. All right, so circle prospecting was number 5. Number 6 is sociographic. Sociographic's important right now because there's never a better time. And sociographic is, of course, like here's an example. If you're a pilot, like you're a private pilot, what you would do is you would drip on private pilots, and they're easy to find because you can go and scrub like anything that's licensed. Like let's say that you were a hairdresser. Before you became a real estate agent, or you're still a hairdresser and you're trying to become a full-time agent. That's okay. That's okay too. Anything that's attached to a license, they're easy to find. You could pull a list of all the hairdressers in town. You can pull a list of all the private pilots who are licensed in town. If you love to fish and hunt, you can go and pull data of all the people who pulled a hunting license last year or a fishing license last year. You could contact them. You could drip on them. On Facebook, it's even easier though. So like that was the old school way of doing it. We would search by licensing, which is still smart, just don't have to. On Facebook though, you can, the coolest thing about Facebook is everybody puts in their own data. And so you can drip on people based on interest. You can drip on people based on occupation. You can drip on people based on what they like or what they don't like. This is what I was talking about last week in the webinar when I was talking about my friend Martin Inman at United Home Group, who did the socially distanced supper club. That's nothing more than a sociographic farm. That's all it is. He's got 2,000 people in Atlanta suburbs who like to eat. Pretty easy, right? So it's simple. And then you just build value around it. Sociographic was number 6. Do something around the sociographic. But my advice here is start with something that you enjoy. Like you might do stuff in your business in 5 years that you don't enjoy. Like I don't give a damn about private pilots. Don't care. It's not exciting to me, but that doesn't mean that I wouldn't drip on private pilots. I wouldn't start there. Does that make sense? Like I'm going to start with the stuff that I'm interested in that doesn't take me a lot of fortitude to go and work because I like it. But that doesn't mean that I stop there. My business wants everybody. It's kind of like, I used to say on stage, how do you want to build your business? And it's kind of a double-edged question. You might not like FSBOs and expireds, but your business does. You might not like internet lead generation, but your business does. And so one of the greatest things I've learned is to start with 2 or 3 things that you enjoy, make enough money that you could buy the rest of it. There's things that I do that I don't love doing, but my business loves doing it. So I might as well do it. I might as well be a part of it. All right, so sociographic. Number 7 is I have a buyer, which goes with sociographic. Now the I have a buyer post, I mentioned it last week and I said, hey, go listen to the 7 steps to 10 listings. Here's the important thing around the I have a buyer post. This one's working better today during COVID than it worked even before COVID because there's just more eyeballs. So you get more juice from it. You want to post that has a picture of a home. So I'll give you an example. So in Portland, Oregon, where I live, we might do a post with a bungalow style home. In your city, you might not have any bungalow style homes. In my city, bungalow style homes are super cool. They're kind of romantic. They were built in the 20s, 30s, and 40s in Portland, like ad nauseum, a ton of them, and people love them. And they're cute and they're artsy and people like it. So I'd post a picture of a bungalow style home, real tight on the home, nothing else. And I would say, I've got a buyer looking, the Johnson, I like names, the Wallace family, the brain likes specifics, gives them something to hang on to. The Wallace family is looking for a bungalow style home, 500 to 550 in this area of town, which would have bungalows. Who do you know who needs to sell? I have a buyer. And the important thing about it is this. Number 1, don't make it too corporate. You don't want your logo all over it. I mean, I know that in some states and cities, like it's even more like in California, anything you do, you have to have like your license number, even on a text message or a phone message. I mean, I get it, man. Like there's some weird places. If you're in one, then I'm guessing you're going to figure this out. If you're not in one, count your lucky stars and don't move to one. But do whatever you have to, but make it as less corporate as you can. The more corporate it looks, the less the returns have been for us. Like we have sucked wind if it wasn't. And by the way, I know that I'm way over on time. I just want to give you guys value. If you got a jet, we're going to send you the recording of this. So please, if you're sitting there like, I got to go, Cody, hurry up. Dude, you're good. We'll send you the recording. You're good. You're gold. You won't offend me if you jump out of here. On the I have a buyer post, less corporate, the better. Like you want it to look very organic. Like you just walked out of a meeting and you're like, I gotta find a home for the Wallace family. But use specifics. Like again, I live in Portland, so I might say within 5 minutes of the Nike campus, which everybody in town here knows where the Nike campus is. And it automatically tells them it's gotta be in this part of town. It's gotta be in this part of Beaverton. It can't be here, can't be here. It can't be Lake Oswego. It's gotta be Beaverton. Like this is where it's, right? So the same thing in your city. Next to XYZ airport, or next to, like if I'm in Seattle, within 10 minutes of Boeing, if I'm trying to find a home, close to that. There's always something, always. It gives them something specific. The I have a buyer post though only works, I need you to hear this, if you do it over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. If you do it once or do it twice, it's not enough. It won't give you the juice. This needs a rhythm. Now, the rhythm that we've taught for a long time is Wednesday afternoons. I don't know why, but there's 18 or 20% more eyeballs on this kind of a post after lunch on Wednesdays. I don't know why, but that's what the algorithm tells us. Those are the stats. During COVID, I'm not sure it matters. Like there's just plain more eyeballs on Facebook, period. I don't know that I would worry about Wednesday afternoon as much. As soon as things change again, or whatever that looks like, maybe that'll change back. But right now, I don't think it matters. But you could do an easy Google search and say, I mean, if only there were a website you can get any answer you wanted from. Go and look at the analytics and say, when is the highest rate of Facebook usage? That's fine. And then post during that time, whatever works for you. But you have to do it over and over and over again. And the reason it's so important is this. Remember, your database is who sees the post, like your friends, like the people that you're friends with on Facebook. That's the news feed that you show up in. So just imagine You do this 10 weeks in a row. Subconsciously, it's like, all right, about every 5 or 6 days, there's my friend Cody. Cody's always talking about some buyer he's looking for a home for. Cody must have all the buyers. Now, does Cody have all the buyers? No. But if I'm the only person on Facebook talking about my buyers, I'm the only person who has buyers. The number one reason that a seller will choose you is they think you have a buyer. You and I know that's the truth. Now, whether you do or you don't, that's the number one reason they should be choosing you. And if you move back into a tighter market, that becomes more prevalent. If you move back into a larger ADOM, average days on market, that becomes more prevalent. Like, this is a big deal. And so what you want to do, I mean, if you have enough buyers that you can do it every 3 or 4 days, dude, do it every 3 or 4 days. And you might find a home for that buyer. But what you're really doing is saying, I got this buyer, I got this buyer, I got all the buyers, I got this buyer, who can help me? I got this buyer, who do you know? Who's got a listing coming up? And I promise you, you do this for 10, 12 weeks, and then you never stop doing it. That's the rhythm. That's what you become known for. Now, it can't be the only thing you post, right? Like, there's still the idea behind a certain percentage of your post should be business and a certain percentage should be personal, and you got to choose what you like there. I like about 50-50. Back in the old days, we used to say like 10% business, 90% personal. I'm not sure that's as important today. For me, I think you can go 50-50 or 60-40, something like that. It's more than it used to be, though, because people are just, they're okay with it, especially if it's about other people. As long as you're telling stories, you're fine. That's the I have a buyer post. The other one, though, that goes with it, which that's number 8, 9, 10, number 7, is I have a seller post. The I have a seller post is when you say, listen, I got a home coming up. These guys, the Wallace family, they're going to list, they've already listed with me, or they're listing with me, or whatever you want to say, whatever's legal in your market. They're going to be live in 10 days. Who do you know who wants to live in a great blah, 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 blah home in XYZ area? Now, some of you, every time I teach this, will send me a message and say, I can't do that in my market. Cool, then don't do it. Do it a different way. Maybe you have to wait till the damn thing is active on the MLS. Sorry, you live in a market where there's that many rules. It is what it is. For me, though, it's about how can I do it, not could I do it. Mine is always how could I? And it might be a certain way of saying it. It might be that you do, like some markets, it has to be in the MLS for you to talk about it, but it could be an off-market MLS. I mean, you know your rules. I'm talking to the entire country. I don't know your rules, but I know that you could figure out a way. I know that if you're a top agent, you don't ask questions like, can I? You ask questions like, how can I? You don't go to your broker and say, can I do this? You go to your broker and say, how can I do this? I don't need it to be a good idea in your eyes. I need you to tell me how I could legally do it and not be in trouble. That's how producers think. Hope you take a note from that. By the way, there's 1 or 2 of you that are watching from Africa. I think that's amazing. Thanks for being here. Number 8 is for sale by owner, which I kind of started the conversation with to prove the point. Number 8 is FSBO. It's still in the top 10. I think you should be doing all of these, but this is the level of importance for me, meaning you do one, then the next. So go back to the top one, database and sphere. If you're not doing well with that, I think you stick with it until you are, but you can't stick with it forever. Like a week or 10 days. I mean, it doesn't take you can't take all day to herd one chicken, damn it. Like, you can't spend a year getting good at sphere and database. That's garbage. That takes too long. That's a bad idea. By the way, if you spent a year in your database, you must have a big one. Most of you don't have giant databases. 80% of realtors are less than 500 people. You could get your arms around that in a week. Don't take all day at this. All right. Number 8 for sale by owner. Here's what I think you need to be doing with FSBOs right now. For sale by owners, what I want you to do, the easiest way to find them is probably going to be, I use LandVoice. They send it to me every day. You could use LandVoice. You could use Craigslist. It doesn't matter. Some of your MLSs even have searchable fields for sale by owners, which is ridiculous to me, but that's a whole different conversation about what we allowed our MLSs to go into. But something around FSBO, right? Here's what you want to do with for sale by owners. With for sale by owners, what you want to do is you take the scripts that have always worked, but you tweak them. And you contact them and you say, listen, selling homes during COVID right now is really tricky. Like, it's tricky. Is there anything that you need? My job is to sell homes here in the market, and my job is to see that homes get sold. Whether I'm selling them or not, I want to help you. And so what you might do is you might contact every FSBO. The first contact doesn't matter. It almost doesn't matter what you say. And the second contact doesn't matter. Here's what matters about for sale by owners. They all tell you that they're going to sell it themselves to save the commission. I already know that. Like that's, I mean, duh. Why else would you do it? You don't sell it yourself because it's fun. You sell it yourself to save the commission. I don't blame you. It sounds amazing. Hope it works. The reason that you contact FSBOs, I've done this for a really long time, is not to list them. The reason that you contact FSBOs is to create some form of relationship with them so you can start following up once a week. And then they go to your follow-up Wednesdays, which I teach in 7 Steps to 10 Listings. As soon as they're on your follow-up Wednesdays, at that point, it is just a game. It's a game of time. It's a game of time of you checking in every week. Hey, do you need anything? We've had 4 homes sell in your neighborhood this week. We'd love to make yours number 5. Do you need anything? I'm ready when you're ready. I want to match my behavior to your motivation. If you ever do want to list, I'm ready for you. In 7 Steps to 10 Listings, I teach the idea of doing a weekend listing. And I teach the idea of doing special deals. I teach the idea of doing a listing with a deal on the commission side. Not that you're reducing the commission, but go listen to 7 Steps and you'll get it. The idea behind, like, you set the commission at closing. It's a really good idea. I used it for a really, really long time. It'll work for you today. But FSBOs, do something. And people get so attached to the first or second contact. Duh, of course they're going to sell it themselves. That's why it's on FSBO. That's not, you don't need to care. You need to almost hear the words and go, cool, of course, that makes total sense. And it goes right out the other ear. The faster you make 1 or 2 contacts and you can get them on a rhythm of follow-up, that's when you list a FSBO 9 weeks later, 12 weeks later, 25 weeks later, and you contact them every week. Trust me, very few people are calling FSBOs, very few, like 3 or 4%. The people who do call for sale by owners or even drip on them with emails or whatever, very few of those do it for more than 2 or 3 weeks. If you'll do it for 8 or 10 or 12 weeks, you're going to take those listings. 9 out of 10 FSBOs that sell end up paying a realtor at some level, even if it's paperwork only or whatever, and you get to choose if you want to do that or not, right? But 9 out of 10, 90% end up paying a realtor. Guess what? I'm a realtor and I like to get paid. And so I'm going to talk to those people. Number 9 is old expireds and canceleds. Again, I buy this from Land Voice. I feel like a broken record. I buy this from Land Voice. There's also Vulcan 7. There's also FSBO /EXP, FSBOexpired.com. There's that one. There's RedX. I mean, I've used all of them. I've used Land Voice the longest, and they're the ones I like the most, but I've used them all at some level in my career. But old expireds and cancels, but they look a little bit different. And so if you're calling an expired from last year, you're calling them and saying, hey, during COVID, like everything's COVID right now. During COVID, we've got a really tight market. I know you were looking at selling last year. Are you interested in selling this year? Just come right out with it. Like with old expireds, you don't beat around the bush. With old expireds, don't call and say, hey, if you were going to move, I mean, that's all garbage. I suppose anything works and nothing doesn't, but if you're going to call old expireds, just get right to it, man. Hey, you were trying to sell a year ago. The market's super tight right now. Do you want to sell during COVID right now? Like, that's a right now play. I'd give you different advice in 6 months if the market changes, but that's a right now play. We're going back through and pulling up all the canceleds from March and April of this year. A whole bunch of people canceled their listings in March and April. Now, you got to be careful in the market that you're in. If it's withdrawn, you probably can't contact that owner. That's still an active listing. If it's canceled, that's the one that you can contact. I always operate with grace. I'm always quick to say sorry if I step on myself. I mean, so I don't, like, if I do something wrong, I find a way to make it right. And so I don't let those things stop me. But I am going back and contacting those old canceled listings from March and April because there's gold in them. And you have a conversation around how we're selling homes left and right during COVID. We don't know what happens at the end of this year. 28 million people didn't pay their mortgage or their rent last month. We're moving back towards, and the signals are, we're moving back towards a foreclosure market, which impacts pricing. If you're interested in selling in the next 6 or 12 months, if I'm you and I don't know how to give advice better than what I would do for myself, I hope you're getting all these scripts, by the way. They're all scripts, is I would sell right now. If I'm going to sell in the next 8 months or 12 months or even 24 months, I'm going to sell right now because I'm making a bet that my home is going to be worth the same or less in the next 1 or 2 years. I'm going to sell right now. If you think your home is worth more in the next 12 to 24 months, hold on to it. but I wouldn't make that bet knowing what I know about the market. And that's an easy conversation to have. But call those old expires, call those old cancels. Call them. Like we were calling this year before COVID hit, we were calling old expires from like 3 and 4 and 5 years ago, which is never a bad play, but it's really important right now. Really important right now. You got people in the last year that expired. Call them. There's not a ton of them though. In most of your markets, like if you're in San Diego County, you don't have a ton of expires because the market's been so wickedly tight there for the last 24 months. You might pull up old expires and have like 7, not very many. But some markets you could actually pull and have enough to actually call for a couple of months. The last one is virtual presentations. The reason I put virtual presentations as number 10, and by the way, I'm way off on timing. I said 25 or 30 and I've gone 51. The reason I put virtual presentations at the very end, I think you ought to do all 10 of these. I think that like if I were coaching you one-on-one, I don't do any coaching outside of United Home Group, but if I were coaching you one-on-one, you would eventually be doing all 10 of these. We might take 6 weeks to get to all 10 or 8 weeks to get to all 10. Damn it, we would not take a year to get to all 10. That's too slow, too slow. Like in the course of 4 or 5 weeks, we should be doing all 10 of them. So you get something done, then you move to the next while you're doing this one. Then you get something else done and you move to the next while you're doing these 2. Then you get something else done, you move to the next while you're doing these 3. That's how you do it. It's no different than how you memorize a long script. You memorize a paragraph or 2, then the next one, and then you know these 2. You guys get my point. The presentation's virtual online. This is a big, big deal. Every one of you should be pumping out content. Click here to watch a quick video about how to get your closing costs covered during COVID. You know how to do it. You know how to do it. Click here to figure out how to buy a home safely during COVID. Click here to understand how the home inspection process works during COVID. Click here to learn about how the impact of COVID will have on pricing. You all could do this, and they could be 3-minute videos or 12-minute videos. It doesn't really matter. But from there, what you do with it is what matters. From there, what you do is they get posted to Facebook. If you post them through a business Facebook, you can boost them. Can't boost a personal post, but you can boost a business post, which means you should probably do both. You should have your Cody Gibson personal Facebook, and you should have your Cody Gibson, I mean, you shouldn't have Cody Gibson, but you should have your Cody Gibson business Facebook. You can boost those, and the personal one you can't, but you guys get my point. Now, what you also do is you email it directly to your data bank. If you only got 200 people, well, then you email it to those 200 people, and you get your ass in gear, and you get it to 2,000 people. Like whatever it takes, 2 people a day, you're going to get there in a couple of years. That's not too long, by the way. That's fine. All right. So what you also do though, is you host it on YouTube. You put it out on YouTube. The greatest thing about YouTube is you need to be careful about the words. We didn't do anything. Google used to use creepers and crawlers on your website, and it would pick out words from your website, and that's how it would move you up in the SEO rankings for search engine optimization and the non-paid like organic searches. Today, the consumer is so used to ads that they don't even care. They don't even see it anymore. They do a search. Like back in 05, 04, 08, they were more likely to go past the 4 ads and click on the top organic hit. I'm not sure if that's how you act as a consumer today. Think about how you shop. You do a Google search and you're clicking the first couple things, which are always going to be advertisements. Ads are so big on Google that you've got to go like 6 ads deep or 10 ads deep, depending on what you're searching for, before you even find an organic hit. That's ridiculous. And I don't think the consumer's doing that. Even on Amazon, like take a look at how you buy on Amazon. Like you do a search for XYZ on Amazon, usually within the first 1 or 2 things, it'll say Amazon choice. Well, that's an ad. Or it'll say sponsored. That's an ad. But you don't care because everything is fast. You just want things to move quick, move quick, move quick. Well, so does the consumer. And some of you are spending a lot of time on your websites trying to get organic search hits. I don't think it's bad, but I think you ought to just buy them. They're cheap enough right now that you can buy them. You buy them. And by the way, you do both. Like I get so sick of people saying, should I do this or this? Yes, do both. Both. Like if you want a great big business, why are you limiting yourself? People go, well, should I do cold lead generation or just call my database? Yes, do them both, you idiot. Do them both. Call your database. And when you're not calling your database, call the cold people and add them to your database. That way your database gets bigger. Yes. People go, should I do my Sphere or should I work FSBOs? Yes. You're a real estate agent. You don't care. As long as they want to buy or sell and they'll do it with you, do you care? No, you shouldn't. All right, I get on a rant, like a soapbox, if you will. So back to the virtual presentations. You put them on YouTube, you start a YouTube channel, and you say things like buying a home in XYZ school district, owning a home within 10 minutes of XYZ facility or hospital or street or area or park or whatever. And what happens is this, that's what people search for. People search for things like average home price near Nike headquarters, Portland, Oregon, blah, 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 blah. By the way, that would be a long search. That would be called a long tail search, which people do. And all of a sudden what happens is you've been shooting videos on YouTube and you say things like owning a home in XYZ school district or owning a home next to XYZ facility. YouTube is being searched by Google. And that's why when you watch a video, so when you watch a video and your sound is off on your phone, because 90% of all searching is on your phone anyway. So if you're not mobile optimized, I don't know what the hell you're doing. Nobody uses a desktop. You've got 90% being watched on that little video screen. That's why when it's silent, the words are showing up, like on Instagram or YouTube or whatever, the words are showing up. Well, that's simply Google or the internet machine reading what you're saying and making it into words, which couldn't be done 10 or 12 years ago. It's absolutely being done right now. So that's why it's so important. You make videos and you do YouTube videos and you say things like let's say that I'm in Portland, Oregon, buying a home in Portland, Oregon. I'm going to say blah, 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 buying a home in Portland, Oregon, blah, 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 to help you buy a home in Portland, Oregon. I'm going to say that 2 or 3 times in a 3-minute or a 4-minute video, because that's what Google is searching to move me up in the search engine. And you just say it again and again and again. And you say it the right way, of course. But you say things like, selling your home for the most amount of money here in Portland. One of the things you might want to consider is doing blank, 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 blank. And that's how you sell your home for the most amount of money during COVID in Portland, Oregon. Right? And all of a sudden, that's what gets you more hits. Like, you got to do something. The virtual presentations, whether it's how to buy a home, how to sell a home, how to negotiate during COVID, how to show your home safely during COVID, how to look at homes safely during COVID. It doesn't matter. Like COVID, for a marketer, COVID is a gift because you've got hits. Like, it's a gift to us if we'll market. But a lot of your competitors, like, they don't market and they're not into it. But I need you to think like a marketeer and not like a realtor. All right, so that is the top 10. Lacey, will you put the slide up on the screen? Can you do that from there? It's so much fun. She's gonna put the slide up with those top 10 so you can take a picture of it. You can always go back and listen to this. If you watch this a year from now, I don't think that it's a waste of time, but it's just kind of too late. Like, this is right now conversation. Like, what do you do right now? Applications right now during COVID. Don't miss it. If you miss it, you can't come back and get it later, like you're stuck with it. Thank you for downloading Hippo Pulse. If you wanted to look at Swift Hippo, take a look at that. I'd be honored. There's no commitment. You can cancel after a month if you want. All right, so back to the 10 lead gen levers. You got database and Sphere, you got pay-per-click, you got social media. We talked about that. Notice of defaults, those are NODs. We talked about circle prospecting, where it says web graphic is actually sociographic, sociographic. And then I have a buyer, which also is I have a seller. So you're going to do both. Listen to the 7 steps if you want more info on that, but you guys got it. I have a buyer. FSBO was number 8. And then old expires and cancels is 9. And then 10 was virtual presentations. My goal for you would be, if you start doing this, you might be great at 3 or 4 of these, pick a few more and add them to it. But all of you should be doing all of these in the next 30 days. You don't have time. And by the way, 30 days is plenty of time to be doing all 10 of these. And you don't have to go ham on it. You don't have to go crazy. Like with pay-per-click, you buy the lowest thing at Swift Hippo, that's $300 a month. Or if you don't want to do that, at least do Facebook and manage your own. And maybe you go, Cody, I'd love to spend $300 a month and I'm happy to do it, but I can't do it today. Cool. You start with where you are. Like the dumb old saying is a journey of 1,000 miles starts with one single step. But plenty of realtors sit there and look at 1,000 miles and never take a step. That's why they don't move anywhere. And so if you got to manage your own on Facebook for a few weeks, then do it. The first sale that you make, take the money from that sale, act like a business, and reinvest it into paying someone else to do your pay-per-click. My company will do it, or somebody else's company. You don't have to buy it from me. There's lots of choices out there. So do what you can until you can afford to pay somebody else to do it. That's the way that you move forward. Old expires and cancels, and then virtual presentations. You could be doing all of these within 30 days. You don't have time. You don't have a year. You don't have 6 months. You don't have 2 months. Like, you got to move now. time is not on your side for waiting. Time is on your side for action. Fortune favors the bold. Move quick. If something's not working, you can always take it back out. But right now, I need you doing these 10 if you want to move forward. And you need more than one line in the water right now. Like, I grew up in Alaska, so I think about fishing. Like, if you got one line and one lure, you're hoping for the best. If you got 10 lines and you got 10 lures, you're catching something. And that's why I think you ought to be doing these. These are the top 10 for me. And they're in the order of, I think, importance. But if you draw a circle around them and go all of them within 30 days, you ain't got time. Get your ass moving with this. All right. I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you learned something from it. I hope you got something from it. I hope that you enjoyed kind of the low key, like not scripted. We just talked about these 10 things. I hope you got value. If I can help you with something, my email is codygibson@kw.com. My Instagram is codygibson1. Easy to find on Facebook. And my mobile is 907-529-517. Go back. 907-529-5172. If I can help you there, shoot me a text or call me if I can help you with something. I'm working extra like you are right now. If I can help, please let me know. My only request at the end of this would be, if you learned something from today, would you consider posting it online and saying something about Hippo Pulse? I'm really, really wanting Hippo Pulse. I mean, it's $5 a person. I'm not getting rich off this. I'd have to sell 25,000 to get any real money from it. But I really want a tool that people can use. And so if you wanted to help me, maybe post something online and talk about Hippo Pulse or mention it, it would honor me. And if you don't like it, then don't. That's cool too. But I'm okay earning the opportunity. Have an amazing day. I'm going to stop talking. Thank you for being here. We'll see you the next time.